episode of the 411, I'll be catching up with a business leader who, to put it bluntly, has created a shit-hot place to work. We're going to be digging deep to understand what that means and how they've managed to achieve that. So if you're a business owner either going through growing pains at the moment or wanting to stand out in a crowded marketplace, then this podcast is for you. I'm joined by Paul Cheetham, founder of Sedulo, co-founder of Be The Standard, host of Taking Care of Business podcast, author of Taking Care of Business book, and investor. Quite an intro there, Paul, that I had to remember. So thanks for joining me today.
No worries, thanks for having me on.
So I think this time last year you interviewed me, and now you're on the other side of things. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into the chat. So I guess you and I have known each other now for a few years. People listening might not. So could you just do a bit of an intro to you and Sedulo?
Yeah, so I set up Sedulo, it'll be about 14 years now, about 14 years ago. We've got 200 advisors now across the 4 cities. We do everything really, like as a business consultancy. So I'm an accountant, is my background, and we started off as an accountancy firm. We started to work in the digital and creative sectors early days when Google was almost brand new, and that was our early success, building digital agencies. And then because we started to understand the metrics involved of online business, digital industries, we started to get a lot of consumer brands joining us who were on high growth, who was on the high street, wanted to convert to either omni-channel or in full move across to the internet. So that was our journey really of growth. We grew along with our businesses, and most of our businesses have been with us a long time. And we do everything for them, whether, the growth journey, M&A, funding, banking, wealth, management. We do everything. And we do a lot in sport. So our main industries are sport, fashion, retail, consumer brands, technology. And through our wealth, we do a lot with some quite interesting sports people, media. So we do a lot with high-profile individuals as well.
Great. So that's a bit of an intro on Sedulo then. So I guess point of this podcast is to showcase great businesses in the Northwest. I know you're national, but also to get to know the person that set the business up. So like I said, I've known you for a few years. One of the things that appealed when we changed advisors to yourselves was exactly that you were working with high growth businesses, but also that I'd bought into you as an individual. And you kindly said similar about me on your podcast last year, but I think you're probably one of, if not the most determined, focused, dedicated owners that I know. And I guess every transaction we have, there's that hunger and fire is evident. So where does that come from? And not just a surface level answer to that. Like, there's a lot of grit there, isn't there? So where does that come from?
There is, and we'll come on to Be The Standard group in a bit. I work with high performers that are global high performers on stage or in a ring or on a football pitch. And you tend to find, and then business owners, of course, you tend to find that there's something deep-rooted that creates that drive. It's as simple as that. There are a few, Kevin Sinfield, being one of them, what just seems to somehow have that determination and drive, and it's not come from any sort of childhood trauma, if you like. My childhood was quite traumatic for the first probably 3 or 4 years of my life. Got a lot better after that, but the early days of rejection, the early days of rejection probably meant that when I was at school, when you're at school, everybody's trying to define who they are. You get the good-looking one, you get the pretty girl, you get the toughest and, cock of the class, you get the funny joker. Mine was always I to be the best at everything, and I still do today. I don't even take losing. I mean, if anybody's seen me lose a game of FIFA to my 16-year-old son, it's pathetic. It's actually embarrassing, right? To the point where he doesn't want to play me. I'm such a bad loser. So that determination, I think, for me was always probably around acceptance, and still is. From school, I would always have to win at everything. I had to be the best at everything. I had to be the best version of myself at everything. And I remember losing a football match once and just if we won, we'd win the league. Whoever won this game would win the league, and I'd be 11 or 12, and with like half an hour to go, I just stood in the middle of the pitch crying for half an hour. Right. I just cried for half an hour. I just couldn't take defeat and losing, and that determination, and it's changed over a period of time. You know, I think that's what got me. Now I'm just determined to be the best version of myself. I'm determined. I'm quite visioned in where I see this organisation. I'm determined to get there. I can see how much creating this organisation helps, and you might come on to this, is able to help other people less fortunate in communities. And I'm just passionately, obsessively driven by creating something great that can therefore have an impact wider than me or my family.
And I think that point's really important, because I think anyone that either knows you well or through socials or whatever it might be, they can see that grit and determination. But I think the bit that isn't always seen, and I know you're not also very good at taking praise either, but that's not seen, is that you really give a shit about people, don't you? Really give a shit about people. And I've been on the receiving end of that when we've been sat in monthly board meetings, and it's not that you're soft and fluffy, because you're certainly not. You will give a message and be really direct, but you just care about what's going on in someone's life, and it's clear that you want to help. And I guess just before we came on this podcast, you were chatting about Lifecast, which is something you do outside of Sedulo, and it's all around talking about key subjects, whether it be anxiety, failure, guilt, being a parent, whatever it may be. And it's that feeling that you're actually helping somebody out. So I guess in a business context at Sedulo, a conversation that I'm having a lot with owner managers at the moment is that employees have kind of never wanted more than they currently do. There's a need to be a compassionate leader. But when you're scaling a high growth business, where's that balance? Where do you sit with that? Do you think you've got the balance, or?
It depends who you speak to. I think what you've got to do is get all the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's people who've worked here that would despise me. Okay. Right. The truth of the matter is because I am quite unforgiving. I wouldn't say. It's a strange one, because I wouldn't say I'm very good at showing empathy and compassion. Okay. But underlying, I genuinely do care about not just the employees, I genuinely do care about businesses. Like, if we have a business and it's not working, it can keep me awake at night, somebody else's business. In terms of how we operate here as an organisation, the key is to getting the right people on the bus, because you can't change people. No. The most frustrating part about life, if you ask me, is you can't change people. You can't turn a demotivated individual to be motivated. Yeah. You just can't do that. They have a different approach to life than what you do. And it really bugs me, that, because I think people could be so much better versions of themselves, but some people just don't want to. And if you don't want to, it doesn't matter what you offer, you can't change that. So I think that, do we get the balance right? We're certainly not fluffy. No. We give a lot and we expect a lot. It's a tough one, isn't it? One thing I think about is what's important to me, and I think it's my job, and I take it seriously, to provide opportunity to people. If I'm going to provide opportunity to people, I didn't say it's my job to be liked by people. I don't think it's my job to be liked by my kids. It's my job to provide my kids with security and safety, and role modelling and opportunity. It's not to be liked. I think we sometimes get mixed up as parents and employers. Yeah, I agree, actually. I do, and I think it is that constant battle, and I probably have a similar viewpoint, that if you've got the right people, you're actually more likely to be compassionate, because you're all in it together, aren't you? Going towards the same goal almost. Okay, so let's move on to, like I said, this podcast is about great businesses. You've gone one step further in true Paul fashion and strive to have a world-class business. So what's almost the difference in your head from a great business to a world-class business? And what are you doing to achieve that goal that you've set yourself? Again, the reason why is it comes down to trying to be the best,
Yeah.
right? So that's always where I've come from. I believe that there's an opportunity in our industry. So from a business perspective, I do believe that there's, it's a 200-year-old industry that perhaps needs modernising. And I saw an opportunity to modernise it, which is, why we have the office spaces and so on that we've done and we're quite different to others. For me, I don't know whether we'll ever be world class, but it comes back to you set a goal, and if you set a goal to be world class and you end up at excellent, better than setting a goal at excellent and ending up at very good in it.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely driven to be the world's best. I think we can be an advisory firm in the end that's global, that's accepted. Comes all the way back to what I said at the start of this podcast. I want this. When people say bad things about Sedulo as an organisation, they might as well be saying it about me.
You. Yeah.
It's the same. So I think so we went on a mission about 5 years ago and said we're going to be world class. And I just bought a business in Leeds that was very industrial and old-fashioned. And they all looked at me, and there was quite a few complaints afterwards saying, we don't understand, we're not world class, and we don't see where we fit in now. And now, 5 years on, look around how the organisation has transformed and the leadership that we've brought in. And I think, well, world class is that we can operate on a world level, creating brilliance on default, not inconsistent, brilliance and excellence on default with the best clients in the world. That's what I think we're going to achieve. Now, how do you achieve that? You've got to have a workforce that wants to work there.
Yeah.
So the main thing that we focus on world-class scores right now, we're just about to start doing the client one, but for 2 or 3 years we focused on the staff. We have a weekly happiness score, which we monitor every single week. Everybody has to do a vote of where they fall on a level. Now, we started at about 6.5, and I knew James Timpson and Richer Sounds and a few others were at about 7.5, and they've been doing it for years. So they were like our barometer. How do we get to 7.5? And now we average anywhere between 7.4 and 7.6. So that to me is, I look at the way Timpsons operate, great company, and our barometer, if you like, of being a world class in terms of how we treat our staff or how happy they are, was like a 7.5 out of 10, and we're there. It took us about 9 months. We did the same before that with a staff satisfaction survey. That was measured out of 5, and we did that every 6 months, and we'd look at who else in the industry, not our industry, in places like Emirates. I think what people in organisations do is they go, well, we're a finance advisory firm or business advisory firm. Well, what's Deloitte's?
Compare yourself to
I'm not
others,
interested in what they are. I'm interested in what Emirates are, or what Virgin Atlantic score is, or what Google score is. So we'd look at where they are on theirs, and we'd say, okay, if we look at where they are and we feel like they represent a world-class business, how do we get our staff to score ourselves along the same way? So that's how we did it. We're now just about to move in. We've just developed a tool where on every single email from now on, we will be prompting people to give us client happiness scores.
Okay, right.
On every email. So every piece of correspondence we send out, we want to be measured on the level of work that we're doing. And hopefully we'll start to build that journey again up to when the clients start recognising us as world class.
Yeah. But I love the fact that it starts with people. So I guess to reinforce some of those points, getting the right people on the bus was an answer to a previous question, but really, really relevant. And when you've got them, then you've got to really make sure that they're performing at their optimum. And if they're performing at their optimum, they're most likely to be happy. And I know, because we appointed Laura, you invested in a head of people and culture. I don't know the exact title you've called it internally, but I think she's been quite a big part, hasn't she, of kind of shaping that whole people side of things.
She's been brilliant. Again, I think she was ex-Mediacom.
She was, yeah.
Right, so we didn't go for, let's try and be PwC, so let's bring a people and culture person from there. We're like, actually, we want to be more of an agency-based model, and we want to be a business advisory consultancy firm. So we got Laura, and she has been has a very different approach. She's very direct.
Yeah.
Coming
from you, Paul.
But she gets shit done.
Yeah.
And we've had a remarkable improvement. And along the way, we've had various. I think she was our 4th appointment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think when you're growing an organisation on your journey, the hardest part, I think, is you have to bring people on at a certain point on the bus, and you have to let them drop off.
Yeah.
It's just what you can afford, maybe, or what you can attract. You know, there's various different things, and that's one of the hardest parts, I think, about business, is maintaining a happiness score and a great culture when you know that you're going to go through.
Yeah, through change, positive change, and as you know, we're quite a bit smaller than yourselves, but we're certainly at that point also, and we're probably, I don't know, of 10 stages at stage 3 or 4 in terms of evolving and growing. And some people will absolutely want what we've got planned in the next few years, and some won't, and that is okay, isn't it? Yeah. But trying to maintain that culture and that happiness, that's something we're on with, and obviously you are, and I've stolen the happiness index, and we've been using it literally for the last few weeks. Yeah. Not yet on the client side, but I think my point was around start with your people, because if your people are on top form, they're more likely to deliver that world-class service to your clients, aren't they? And then almost start to measure that. When you came on a webinar during COVID, there was something that you said which probably seems super obvious to you, but it really made me think about, actually, we don't really do that at 4, and now we do. And it was all around when you're making kind of key business decisions, whether it be new revenue streams, new products, new services, you ask yourself questions around, but is it aligned to the values, what you're trying to focus on? Can you just share those with us? Because I think you've got 3 or 4 key principles almost, haven't you? Results focus, giving back.
Yeah, so we, the first thing is our mission, right, is to help the communities we exist in. It's not to be the best advisory firm in the world.
Yeah.
Our mission has to involve something that everybody can buy into. So we have our mission. How do we create that mission? Is we create a world-class advisory firm, right? Because that opens up the ability for us to help more people in the community. Beneath that, then, we have 3 pillars, as we call them, which is we give back together, we have fun together, we get results together. Would have been bad if I'd forgot one of them, wouldn't it? and literally, they are plastered everywhere. I mean, they're not just plastered everywhere. Every single pay review, every single... They're just fed through everything we do, whether that's the Sedulo annual, we do an annual every year, you know, every message I send out, every conference, we just don't stop talking about those pillars. Because I think they're all equally vital. Yeah. You know, the idea of working or running or being part of an organisation that doesn't want to have any fun. I've just talked about life before and people drifting. Yeah. Like, why would you do anything that doesn't provide the ability to have some positive fun? Because life's too short. Where you can give back, I don't think you get any greater sense of achievement than what you can do for others and giving back. So let's get everybody involved in that. So we're launching our foundation in June. But you can't do any of that. It's a bit like when they say on a plane, put your own mask on first before you help others. You can't help others and you can't have fun if you don't get the bloody results, right? So at the pillar, that might be the most important one, right? So there are our pillars, as we call them. Then we have values, and then we've gone one step further than that, which is behaviours. So there is a behaviour manual. You know, it'll be things like be the first person on the dance floor, be interested and interesting. I'm trying to think of some of the others now. There's 10 of those. But again, they're all over every office space. And what I think my job is, I think the 2 areas of my job that's important is, I've got to make sure if you want to be a high performer, I sit you next to a high performer. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm doing you a disservice. And the second thing is if I bring you as a high performer, it is my responsibility to provide you with an environment of opportunity. Yeah. That's what I live and breathe every single day. As long as I achieve those things, I can take most other things on the chin. People can say he's abrupt. People can say he's empathetic. People say he's not sympathetic. I think my main 2 roles are to make sure that you have got all the opportunity and all the tools you need to fulfill your own ambition. That's my role. It's not to be liked, it's not to be nice, it's to make sure this is what I need you to behave like, and I've spelt it out with a mission, an objective, values, behaviours, and a charter. By the way, at recruitment, we go through that with a fine tooth. If you are not interesting and you don't want to be interested, don't take the job.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be the first person on the dance floor, I'll rephrase that. Nobody wants to be the first person on the dance floor.
I don't know, I'm quite happy to be the first person after a few.
I'll make sure I remember that. Really, what I should have said is,
Yeah.
are you prepared to be the first person on the dance floor?
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to be.
Yeah.
We expect everybody to be here at some point.
Yeah.
So we set the expectations very clearly. And everything's run off values. Every single thing we bring out, you know, like in our industry, 10 years ago, tax schemes were big. I could have made a fortune 10 years ago on tax schemes. And everybody was saying, God, you recommend them. They all save tax. It didn't feel right. Integrity is a massive value in this organisation. Nothing comes above integrity. I care what people think about me on my tombstone. And I sometimes look at people, you know, who get successful and people think they're dickheads. And I think, nothing, you couldn't give me £1 billion for the majority of people to think I do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You couldn't give me £1 billion today for my kids to think I'm not a good dad.
Yeah.
Couldn't give me £1 billion. There's other people that'd snap your hand off. I'm not one of those, and I don't want to work with people like that. And I don't want to work with negative people either, because I think life's too short. I have a fear of dying, right? That's where a lot of my anxieties come from. I don't know where that's come. Maybe it's from my granddad, who really brought me up when I was 13. But that is, I do have ill health and a fear of dying. But what the yin and the yang of that is, it puts me in an environment of anxiety most days. What it does do, though, it drives me to live life to its fullest. I expect to surround myself with people who are also like that, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's loads of stuff to pick up on there. So I think going back to my compassionate leadership question, I think you've answered that in a slightly different way, in that what you're saying is you want the best of the best, but you're going to give them an environment where they can thrive. Well, you can be compassionate without being soft and fluffy. That is being compassionate, isn't it? I think the whole caring what people think about you, I think for anyone who's outwardly quite extroverted, quite confident, successful, that probably comes as quite a surprise, because people will see you and you know, to a slightly different degree, me as a bit of a machine, you're just on it and you don't care what people think. And then I think the link that you've just said then, and we've never had this conversation before, and it's quite a deep conversation, but the whole death situation, and it sounds almost quite an immature outlook on life, but I cannot get my head around it. And daily, it's on my mind, almost daily. Not to the extent of where it takes over. And I guess I look back and I know that's come from losing my parents, and I can give a really obvious link. And I know, because you've spoken about anxiety in the past, so I know you've had that, but I didn't know it was linked to that, though. So do you know where that's come from?
My only guess is, as I say, my granddad was my role model.
Right.
And he died when I was 12, and I have this kind of, what's the best word to describe it? I have this thing inside me that I have this regret. I have this regret inside of me that he never seen what I became.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one from my family that, you know, even went on to higher education.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who got out of the town or the village that I was in, to a degree. And I don't think his dreams for me, I've probably fulfilled them by the time I was 18, not 44 as I am now. So, but I always think, and a lot of my anxiety was then driven by my family unit, you know. It's like, how much can I achieve so my mum can benefit from it while she's still alive?
Yeah.
You know, so that gave me this like forward energy, driven, determined, unhealthy, by the way, which is why it spilled over into panic attacks and stuff at one point. But I was just so driven to be like, Mum, I've got to be able to show you that and I've got to bring you on the journey. Yeah. I think my mum's 68 now, and my mum's life has changed on the back of me, because and my dad who brought me up, his whole outlook on life has changed on the back of me. So that they would have gone from living in a little village, going to the working men's club every week, and all of a sudden I started to show them nice restaurants, and we went on holiday together, and they started to see the world, and now they go on their own cruises and they put their own table for dinner. But then, you know, there was none of that in my house when I was a kid. So I have been able to bring them on. But I think that there has been that burning anxiety that sometimes, even only the other day, my dad's actually poorly at the moment. I thought, oh, Dad, you didn't get to see. If you go now, you're not going to get to see the next stage. Yeah. And by the way, I know what the next stage looks like, and I need you there. Yeah. That's where the anxiety is driven.
And I think. So I was 10 when I lost my dad, so not dissimilar to you with your granddad, but certainly when I lost Mum 8 years ago, there were parts of my life that weren't done, and I was absolutely devastated that she's not seen that. So I totally get that, and I think going back to kind of the whole fear of death, and I'd be interested to see how many people have that fear, because if the 2 people in this room do, then there's probably a lot more. But I think there's that balance of. But like you said, for you, it tips over, and it does occasionally for me as well. It's that balance of it drives you to make every single day count, doesn't it? And to just go and smash it. But when it goes the other way, then obviously that can be a bit dangerous. If we just move on to that now, so the anxiety side, the mental health side. So one point I want to make is a conversation you and I had about 3 years ago, quarterly meetings that we have, and you asked me what are the biggest risks to for at the moment, and we were on a growth trajectory which we're still on, and I was really honest and said probably me, because I know I can have wobbles. I take a lot on, life can be a bit overwhelming sometimes, and I said I just wish I wasn't that person. And from any book or podcast or therapist that I've spoken to, the one thing that you said was, Claire, and you probably said it a bit more bluntly than I'm about to deliver it, because I'm not going to swear too much on the podcast, but you were like, Claire, just accept it. And you said it, and it was really well-meaning, just accept it, because the sooner you accept it, then you can put practices in place. And from that day, I've actually been like, I am what I am. I know how I now need to manage it. And I think your point was most high performers have those wobbles, because the things that make them brilliant can also trip them up sometimes. So I think that just point, for anyone listening, and there's lots of people who do sometimes have wobbles, that was an honestly game changer for me a few years ago. So I guess in terms of yourself then, talked a little bit about anxiety and panic attacks in the past, and you've alluded to some stuff going on now with your dad. What do you do kind of daily, weekly? You're disciplined. Even before this podcast, you said, have I got enough time for a protein shake? And I was like, yeah, you have. Yeah. So what kind of things do you do daily, weekly to keep yourself in check?
Yeah, I mean, you live with it, I think, when it's like a superpower, but it can be super destructive. Yeah. And so I think I'll live with it forever. And at a point, there's a point where I was about 30. I've never been the other side where I've been suicidal. No. But there was a point where I did think, can I go on like this every single day? Yeah. Every fucking day. Yeah. There's like a palpitation or a this. And I wasn't accepting it back then. No. Right? It was only when I learned to accept it that I was able to mentally move on. Now, I do still every day monitor where it is. I'll wake up in the morning, I'll think, what am I today? I'll think, oh, the birds are singing today, it's a nice day. Things like that help, right? Yeah. So there are things out there that help. That's the key. We've all been in a relative space, and then our favourite song or a song from the 80s has come on. You've gone from a 5 out of 10 mood to an 8 out of 10. Yeah. And I think that is important. That means that I could make you cry. I could make you cry in the next minute. You could make me cry. Doesn't matter what mood you're in right now. If I tell you something now, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, right? I could bring your mood from an 8 to a 2. So what that means is whatever your mood state is in right now or mine, it can be changed immediately by what's going on around us, positively and negatively. So if I wake up and I think, oh, I'm all right today. Birds are singing, sun's out, it's Easter, right? You think, oh, I don't feel anxious today, right? I will still do various non-negotiables. So my non-negotiables in a day are to make sure I'm metabolically stable. I think people misunderstand that people just drift through life thinking we're these humans that just walk around. They don't understand that there's all these reactions going on. So give the body what it needs, right? That is my first thing. So what does it need? It needs sleep. So I monitor my sleep. I make sure I have 7 hours sleep every night. I make sure my circadian rhythm is in. I go to bed every night at 10 o'clock.
Right.
You know, I'll break it.
So same routine.
But it's a routine.
Yeah.
It means that my body knows it's going to sleep. I put my head in the pillow and I go to sleep because it knows that's what I do every night, 10 o'clock. So I get a good sleep, and that is one of the, I would say if there is one thing that is the worst, I think all hangovers are born from a lack of sleep. There is other factors, but I think the main part is a lack of sleep. So for me, it's like sleep. Circadian rhythm, make sure you're disciplined in when you go to bed. I always drink 2 litres of water, because if you're dehydrated, your body's not going to be reacting right. So the next thing I do is I train every day. I don't train where I kill myself, and I don't understand these people that go, I'm beasting myself. If you're running a business or you're a manager in a business and you've got some responsibility, beasting yourself, if you ask me, is not the answer.
No.
So I go to the gym every day and I potter, right? I go for 40 minutes and I enjoy it. I'm not there dripping in sweat. I'm not there grunting in the corner of the gym. I'm going and it's my space. So I make sure I go to the gym the other day. So it's gym, water, food, right? If is caffeine, I don't have caffeine after 11. I have 2 coffees a day. After 11, no caffeine. Why? Because I want to sleep better. Plus, it's an anxiety attack waiting to happen. So is alcohol, right? I have a love-hate relationship with alcohol. I love it when I'm not having it, and I hate it after I've had it, right? But the thing about it is it's depressive, and it messes everything up, your mood and everything. So I make sure that if I'm in an anxious state, I do not drink. And the minute I feel okay, I start having a drink again. Sugar, right? Sugar's going to crash your mood up and down. So control the sugar that you eat. I fast every morning. Right. So I don't eat after 7 because I want a good night's sleep. Right. So I don't want to be digesting food in the night. And I don't eat until 11 or 12 o'clock the next day. So I eat probably for a period of about 7 hours a day. Why? Because I don't want the up and down mood that the sugar rush is going to give me. And the reason being is because I'm under a high pressure job. And I don't actually know what's going to happen in the next hour. Yeah. Right? I have no idea. But I want to be able to deal with it in the best state that I can. So I don't want to be entering a situation in an hour's time that could be highly anxious, already anxious. Sugar. And the final thing that I do, I think the other final thing that I make sure that I do, but I don't do it every day, but if I feel anxious or, I won't even say nervous because I think nerves are great. If I feel anxiety, I meditate.
Right, okay. So I look at that tick list. Sleep for me, agree. It's about the only thing I feel I can fully control and kind of be all over. Is that real life though? Because a lot of people, I love the idea of that, but then shit happens, something goes wrong, work, family. How much do you stick to that routine in real life? And if you don't, do you see an obvious impact? Do you feel shit about it? Because that can have a negative impact.
We'll go on holiday tomorrow.
So it'll go out the window.
Right, and I am more anxious and on holiday than I am when I'm back home.
Because you've got less of a routine.
I've got a lack of routine.
Yeah.
And I'll drink more.
Yeah.
I'll still do all the others, but I will definitely drink more. I'm probably more dehydrated, and the sleep goes out of pattern, right? Yeah. And that makes me anxious and nervous. Yeah. I'm going to stop saying nervous because the two are very, very different. But it gives me anxiety, and in the end, I can't wait to get home. Really? To get back to my routine. By next week, when I'm away for a week, can't wait to get home, get in my own bed at 10 o'clock and just have my 8 hours sleep every night. I
think it's that control though, because if you know you're controlling all those aspects of your life, then like you say, when something comes at you, in your head you're like, I'm in a better place to deal with that. If you're not, possibly your reaction's going to be different, isn't it? So you'd say the majority of the time you stick to that?
You're not going to get anywhere in life if you're not committed and dedicated. Yeah. So if you know that to lead a better life, that's what you've got to do. You just do it. I think people spend too much time deciding whether or not they're going to do it or not. Yeah. You know, if sugar's not good for you, or if you're anxious and you know that caffeine's a sort of inhibitor or the opposite of an inhibitor of anxiety, you just don't do it. Yeah. You know, you just don't do it. You don't give yourself that choice. One of the other things that I've done is, as I'm getting older, you don't need as much sleep. So I started to wake up in the night. I never used to do that. And when I first started to wake up in the night, I'd wake up and I'd be anxious that I was waking up. Yeah. And I'd start thinking of all the things that aren't going right. And there's a physiological reason for that, by the way. In your state of mind is, what's the anxiety? Come to me in a minute. come to me in a sec. But anyway, there's more chemicals running through your body at night that are stress related.
Right.
Than that's why when you wake up, if you're stressed out in the morning at night and you fall back to sleep, in the morning the problem that you had at 3 a.m. is no longer as bad.
It's always better, yeah.
So again, that can be quite a lot of people when they're anxious or depressed or mentally, whatever, volatile. That evening, if they don't get the sleep, it can really bring that on worse, because scientifically, physiologically, you're in a worse state to think.
To kind of deal with it, yeah.
So I think that's important. I don't know if you've done this, but if I wake up in the night now, I practice gratitude.
Right.
So I will just think of all the things. It sounds a bit fairy, this, but it works. I will just think of all the things that I'm grateful for. And it stops my mind going, oh, what about wages?
Yeah.
What about that member of staff? What about this deal? What about, this place? What about... Actually just start thinking of what are all the things that I've got in life that somebody else out there I'd give the right arm for.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot, Paul, and you're being irrational here, thinking about all... And I don't know if you've ever done that, but it gets me back to sleep straight away.
Yeah, so I must admit, I don't really wake up in the night, but I do sometimes do the gratitude, and then I forget and I'm knackered and I go to bed. But there's the whole concept behind, the more that you do that, you're just wiring your brain a certain way, aren't you, as opposed to, like you say, kind of thinking of the negatives. So clear, you're big on discipline, commitment to all the stuff that you do daily, weekly, and I know you're massive on personal development, both in terms of what you talk about and also the business group that you've launched, which we're going to come on to. Yeah. It's all well and good us talking about stuff that makes you a success, me a success, but we've all got our blind spots, haven't we? And we've all got those areas to develop. What do you think your blind spots are as a leader?
My biggest issue is a lack of patience.
Yeah.
I'm not that great at understanding, so I'm not one of those. I'm probably more of a taskmaster than I am a nurturer. Yeah. Even though I want the outcome to be nurturing, so I have people around me to do that. When I say forgiving, I don't mean forgive people. I can forgive somebody. I mean, you can fall out in a minute and I'll forgive and move, but I'm not forgiving at the time, do you know? So, but by a long, long way, I think I have a complete lack of patience, and I get very irritated and frustrated by people not getting it quickly. Yeah. My missus has a real problem with that, if I'm honest with you. That's what she would say. Being in the house with me, I'll say something, and it's like clear as day to me. I don't really understand. It's not
how someone else can't see it. And
I've tried to work on that, but sometimes, and sometimes I'd get really down on myself about, oh, you went off on one there, you were too quick to react there. You know, I could see like in the face that they're looking at me, and I'm like looking at them puzzled as if to go, why did you not just fucking get what I just told you to do? It's like easy. It's easy work, this. And I'm still like that now. But there was a point where it would get me down a little bit, thinking, oh, you're not a great leader if you can't do that. I think sometimes you've got to accept yourself for what you are. You've got to accept that you're anxious if you're anxious. If you've got depression, you've got to accept that. I don't mean accept it and don't do anything. I just mean you've got to be accepting of who you are. And I think as I've got older, I've become less bothered about what people think, because I know who I am. Yeah. And also, if I get things wrong, I know who I am. I wouldn't have got it wrong because, I don't try and fuck people over. Yeah. It doesn't mean that I get everything right. It doesn't mean that people, so I think that word, being accepting of each other, ourselves, is massive.
And those things like lack of patience, are you quite comfortable, let's say, with your leadership team? Is there a bit of almost banter? You know what I mean by that? So they can almost turn around and go, like, that's that side almost. Maybe you need to think about such and such. Are you good at that? Or is it just that people just have to accept that is the way you are? And
it's a really good question. I'm not sure. I think the people that work closer to me like working with me. Yeah. Right? People like working with Alex Ferguson. People, when they liked working with Michael Jordan. That's why you have to get the right people on the bus. Yeah. Because people want to... I think the truth of the matter is You know, people want to be around people like Michael Jordan and Alex Ferguson because they're winners. Winners have to act in a certain way. They have to be the standard bearer. They have to get irritated. I know I can walk through here and if the flowers aren't right, I'm irritated. If the sweets haven't been changed, I'm irritated. If the cappuccino's not put a biscuit on the side, they won't put one on mine because they know I don't eat it. But if they don't put one on the side, I'm irritated.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly used to think, oh my God, you are like Victor Meldrew of business. You just go around and nothing's good enough. Everything could be improved. But you know what? You get the wrong person alongside you or within your teams, and you get mediocre around that person, you're not going to be liked.
Yeah.
You have to get the people around you that go, actually, we respect Paul because he does bear the standard. He maintains a standard. He sets a standard. By the way, he also lives a standard.
Yeah.
I don't have time for those people who set the standard and then don't do it. That's why you can talk about me and my discipline because you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know who I am. You know, I think people know who I am. But whether or not I'm good at, you know what I am good at doing, and this is a fact, you don't grow at the speed we grow at if I don't empower people. Because even though I'm a taskmaster, if you go away and deliver something to the standard, and with all the values that and chat and behaviours we discussed earlier, I actually, more than anything, I'm probably quite rude to you because if you've got one of the divisions here, I know there was some people I was thinking of them where their division just runs world class. Yeah. I don't even bother with them. So I don't attach myself to the ones that are doing well. I just let them go off and do what they need to do. Yeah. And the people that work with me love the empowerment that they get. But not if it's going wrong. No. Then I'm a taskmaster.
And I think the point again, and you said it about 5 times, but it's true, that if you've got the right people, they're going to buy into what you're about. And they might turn around and go, yeah, he can be a bit impatient, but that's what makes you who you are and the success. So it is about having the right people.
We had Gary Neville at Be The Standard.
Yeah, we did.
How passionately he talks about Sir Alex Ferguson. Yeah. Why? Because he's a winner. Yeah. I had Gordon Strachan in the other week, and he said exactly the same thing. Throughout all the idiosyncrasies that a guy like Sir Alex Ferguson would have, if you're a winner, you want to be working with a leader that wants to win. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. And if I look at and the people that thrive and love it, and those where it doesn't work out, it doesn't make them a bad person, but they're just not part of... I don't know, they don't want it enough, or work's not as much of a priority for them, and that's okay, but they're probably not right for us, which is effectively what you're saying. Let's talk about Be The Standard, because you mentioned it a couple of times. So I think you set this group up 2 years ago, roughly.
2 years now, yeah.
I've been a member for a year. So do you want to just talk a bit about it? Because it links to the whole kind of sports passion that you have as well, doesn't it?
Well, it links to human performance. Yeah. I'm more passionate about that than I am sport. What I am passionate about is... What I am frustrated about is how an everyday person, or I call them an everyday athlete, how they walk around just thinking, that person's a sports person, so they need to eat right, they need to drink right, they need to sleep right, all the things we just talked about earlier. They think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, I'm an accountant. That doesn't apply to me, I'm a recruiter. That doesn't apply to me, I'm a lawyer. And I think, that's a mental, that is just an alien thought process to me. I've always thought, to be the best dad, you know, you go on the piss for 7 days and have your kid and see what a good mum you are. Yeah. You know, you eat crap every day, see how good a mum you are. You eat sugar all the time and have mood swings and see how good a friend you are, or a mum, or a partner, or a leader, or whatever it is, a colleague. So for me, I've always gone, listen, the channel of performance could be sport, but it could be anything. So why don't we prepare to be as best a father or mother or parent or child or sister or brother or whatever it is as we can? So I've always been quite passionate about that. You see it best in sport because they do it because it's the job. I think everybody should do it because it's the job. Anyway, got to meet Kevin Sinfield, who most people know was an ex-rugby league player. He's now coach of England Rugby Union. But before that... in the middle of all that, he's raised about 7.5 million for motor neurons disease. And I knew his best mate before that, Jamie Jones, who you also know, who again leads a rugby legend. And he said, oh, you need to meet Kevin Sinfield. I was over in Leeds at the time now, Leeds, and I didn't really know who Kevin was because I'm not a rugby league fan, really. And he went, you've got to meet him, he's the most impeccable bloke. And I thought, what a thing for your best mate to say.
Yeah.
So I met him, and he's quite introverted, keeps himself to himself. So it took a while, really, for me to get to know him. But once I got to know him, I started to look at his achievements. I was genuinely bamboozled by how somebody could be so high-performing but doesn't have the yin and the yang combination we just talked about. He hasn't got the anxiety. He hasn't got the... He's not even on social media.
He's so balanced and measured, isn't he?
He doesn't need any identity. He doesn't need any validation. He has no insecurities that I've ever seen. I've never heard him say a bad word about. I've never heard him gossip. So I'm like, how do you perform at that level, World Player of the Year, when you don't seem to have any of that trauma or negatives that come? Anyway, we then started to chat about what he was like in his career and the team that he had around him. And so what was quite evident was, when you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or a manager at a high level, who have you got that's helping you be a better individual? I don't... Listen, it's each to their own, but I don't buy into this ones where it's like, here's how you become a better communicator. Do you know how you become a better communicator? Be more confident, right?
Yeah.
Here's how you become a better leader. Do you know how you become a better leader? Become more secure. And I think that Kevin is so good at everything he puts his mind to, because deep down in the middle, he's just a proper person.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that in our industry, we don't have a sleep coach, we don't have a physio, we don't have a recovery expert, we don't have a nutritionist, we don't have all those individual things. And half the time, we don't even have anybody to speak to.
Yeah.
Because if you're at the top of the organisation, I don't think people understand how lonely it sometimes can be. So I was like, how do we tick all them boxes? Let's create a club for entrepreneurs, base it around sport, because sporting organisations are the best examples of providing environments to allow world-class high performance. So let's bring that to the business arena, which is what we did.
Yep.
So as you know, we've got Stephen Gerrard at the next one. We have some amazing speakers. We'll have a sports speaker, a business speaker, and like a surgery in the middle where we discuss our problems. And we've been going now 2 years. You'll know, because you're in those sessions, those problems, they're becoming quite personal.
Yeah.
Well, they're not coming quite personal. They're all personal.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I joined it about a year ago. I'd been in a business group previously, could massively see the benefit. But I think the difference with this one is there is stuff you can take back to your workplace, but it's about using the phrase you used earlier about being the best version of yourself. It gives you that day away to just really focus on you, reflect, go back, different practices. I've absolutely loved it. And like I say, I think I've been a member for about a year now, and I know a lot of business people are. I've not got a sports background. I've not got a passion necessarily for sport, but you don't need to have, because the principles and the stories, yes, there's some football lingo or rugby lingo, but actually it's around motivations and it's totally inspirational, isn't it? So you've got one group that you run. Are you on about setting up more groups? Or
maybe. I mean, Kevin, there was a point where when we originally set it up, Kevin was going to be heavily involved, and he keeps getting offered more jobs because he just keeps getting more successful. So for me, what I'd like a group in each of the 4 cities we're in the end. I'd like 4 of them. And then beyond that, we did a live, which we did it because what I'd like to do, the truth of the matter is I think some of the learnings, I get frustrated that my missus didn't hear it, or I
think that if my brother was in it, because when you then repeat the message, it's a bit diluted, isn't it? It's not got quite the same passion as when you're in the room. Yeah, I agree.
So what I would genuinely like to do is have the club, which is quite expensive, and then I'd like to go to some lives, a bit like Gary's doing with the Overlap now, Gary Neville, and then I'd also like to do some books on it, because I just think learn some of the things I learned on how to sleep from the sleep expert, or even posture. We had one, meditation, breathing, and then some of the stories from an Alistair Campbell or Gary Neville, or whatever Gerrard will say, or Eddie Earn, Levi Roots. We had all these people, and I think it's a mixture of like being inspired, but it's also a mixture of there's some key learnings in some breathing techniques even. I just think everybody should, again, I could go on all day about this, but it annoys me that none of what we've just discussed, which is important to human performance, features in any curriculum at school.
I know.
Don't get me started on that. It's a joke.
No, I totally agree. And I think going back to the days, I'm pretty a motivated person, but like stuff gets on top, doesn't it? Work, family, personal, whatever. But what those days do for me is they just kind of ground me back to why am I doing it? What's important? And I can't help but leave each day absolutely fired up, which then my brother, who's my business partner, gets in the neck a bit because I'm like, right, we need to do all this stuff straight away. But yeah, amazing speakers. And I think if there are people that are thinking about joining, like you'd be up for speaking to people, without doubt. A couple more things from me. Sedulo Foundation.
Yes.
You've just launched.
Yeah.
So just talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is we're getting to a size where we need to formalise what we do. So we've always been massive in the community. We've always done the toy appeal. I think we did 15,000 presents last Christmas, and they're all bespoke presents. So it's quite a challenge, that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we do every year. The second thing that we do is back to school packs. So we started that in COVID when people were saying, oh, you need to homeschool. And like, seriously, people in poverty haven't got calculators and paper and pens and all that kind of stuff. So we started to do that, and we started to put some Nando's vouchers in. So kids at 11, 10, we're talking about kids in serious poverty here that won't be getting a hot meal over the summer. Now they're able to go to Nando's and spend the voucher. JD Sports do a bag and they help us out with that. So we do that campaign, which is 1,000 kids a year. We give back to school boxes. And then there's another campaign on the back of that. Some of the head teachers said, do you have anything for girls? Because there's a lot of girls that take go into secondary school and take a week, a month off because they haven't got the product to be able to go to school. Which is embarrassing for them, so they just don't come in. And there's nothing we can do about it.
That's mind-blowing, isn't it?
I mean, I never thought of that in my life.
No, until you've just said it, neither have I.
But as soon as the teacher said it to one of the girls, or a couple of the girls here, they was like, really? Imagine how embarrassing that is? Yeah. So then it was like, okay, it's getting bigger now, because say there's 1,000 people, 500 of them are girls. You can't just do it for year 7. No. You've got to do it for 5 years. So 500 becomes 2,500 girls a year that we will supply in 5 years, annual period packs for. So that's quite a big campaign.
I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah.
No.
So now we get to the point where you think, hold on, we've got to formalise this. Yeah. So we launched the foundation in February, March. And we've got the gala dinner on the 29th of June at the Hilton in Manchester.
Amazing.
And it just allows us now to, it comes on to, there's only so much you can do with like...
ad hoc kind of projects almost, but you can bring it all together.
So my dream is, we have been buying Christmas presents now, and I'm talking for the most impoverished kids. They aren't getting a Christmas. And we might have been doing that. We have been doing it for 10 years. So we could easily have took a girl and gave her Christmas every year, which at least that one day of the year she feels loved. And then we get to year 7. They go back to school, she gets some stuff, she gets some goodies, she gets to go to Nando's and have some independence. Then she gets the ability to school 4 weeks of the month until she's 16. Then I'm going to utilise our network of clients to start giving people apprenticeships and jobs. That is stage 4. So we can take people that we've been with all their lives. When they get to a point, there'll be some kind of sessions, probably age 14 to 16, because a lot of the vocabulary of these people, these people, when we ask them what they want a pair of socks or a pillow to lie on, right? So they don't have the vocab. So there'll probably be some kind of training around, and there might be another part then where we add into that your first dress, your first suit, whatever it is to get the interview. And then I'm going to appeal to all my network to start giving people jobs so we can get people long-term out of poverty.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I didn't know about a lot of that, actually, and I'd be like super up for getting involved in that. I think it's amazing. 2 things to end on. If you remembered for one thing, don't want to go back to the death anxiety right now, because let's not talk about that again. But if you remember for one thing, what do you want it to be?
The key thing for me is to be remembered by my kids and my wife as a good dad. That is the most important thing to me, right? Beyond that, I just want to be remembered for being a good person that did the right thing and was able, from the position that I started to influence other people's lives in a positive way.
Amazing. And biggest lesson you've learned to date, whether it be personal or work related?
The biggest lesson I've learned, that's a big question. The biggest lesson I've learned is to accept my failings, if you like. So a lot of my rejection as a child breeds insecurities as an adult. And there would be a point where I'd feel like a bit of a failure because people don't look at me and think, I bet he's insecure.
Yeah.
They don't think that,
no,
right? They'll look at me and think the opposite, but
Yeah.
that's not true. And I think there was a point where, and I've said this before, but she'll kill me if she hears it on a podcast. My missus used to, when you have that argument and you're running out of ideas, you think, I need to get the Achilles here.
Okay.
She'd come out with, you're just a big kid, you act like a baby, you're so insecure and needy. And as an alpha male, if you like,
Yeah.
it would be like.
That would really set
And there
you
was
off.
a point where she actually said it, and I wasn't bothered.
Right.
I was like, do you know all this around us? Do you know?
Yeah.
I'd got to the acceptance of what was driving me. And so all of a sudden then, me saying I'm insecure, I can laugh about it all day long with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ironically, is if you think you're insecure, you're not as insecure as what you think you are
Yeah,
anymore.
because
So
you're aware of it.
a bit like anxiety. Once
Yeah.
you accept that
Yeah.
you're an anxious person and you've got the ability to have panic attacks even, you don't become as anxious a person.
Yeah.
And you become less susceptible to having panic attacks.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest lesson.
Yeah, so the acceptance side, brilliant. Look, thanks for your time, Paul. I know you're super busy, and hopefully people listening will have got to see all sides of you, which is the ridiculously ambitious side, but how much you want to give back as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on. Thank
Good
you.
stuff.